Hey yo, what's poppin', man? Give me 1 second, let me test. That is the mic indeed. What's poppin', guys? I hope you guys have been well. Today we have another Q&A, alright? And the difference with this Q&A is not only that the question is different, but it's also the fact that I'm not actually consuming tea today. I actually have myself some caffeine, right? Obviously just not caffeine in itself. I have myself a protein smoothie that comes with caffeine. So I'm trying this out. It's by Rockerbee Farms. It's Australian. And it's really good. It's the double espresso version. Comes with 30 grams of protein. I don't know how true that is, but I don't think they would lie to us, would they? I don't know. All right, so this is the question we have today, guys. First of all, welcome back and all of that. Avi, ask question. Never mind. Can you explain about obstacles? Can they change the storyline too? Question mark, question mark. So the question this person is asking is, explain a little bit more about obstacles. Can obstacles change or influence the storyline in any way? So we all know about what a storyline is, right? It's in layman's terms, it's the direction of the market. It gives us the rules which predict what time frame we're going to be looking at entries from, what time frame we should be very worried about, what time frame we should be worried about for obstacles, things like that. The storyline gives us that kind of information. In an extended and more advanced sense, the storyline also tells us when, let's say we have 6 daily levels, price hits the 4th daily level, and the storyline starts from there. We now have a good idea that that 4th daily level is probably going to hold price now. It's going to hold that price. It's not going to blast through and reach the other levels beneath or above it, right? So the storyline gives us all these kinds of details. Now, can I explain more about obstacles? Can they change the storyline? Absolutely, I can explain it. But can it change storylines? Absolutely, it can. So I have myself an example for you guys. This happened just last week. So it's a Sunday today, and this happened last week, I believe. All right, so let me just make sure I'm on. Yeah, okay. This is the right chart because I can remember it. An obstacle, first of all, you have to understand. An obstacle exists not only one time frame below the time frame of the storyline, but it also exists on the time frame of the storyline. Now, you guys may be confused. Avi, stop yapping, bro. What's bro yapping about, right? Show us some examples. All right, here we go. Let me show you some examples. So let's today deal with the weekly time frame exclusively. Let's just deal with it right off the bat. Weekly time frame, just to prove a point, just to show you guys this example. We're going to deal with the weekly time frame. Now, over here we have ourselves a weekly bullish storyline, and let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this right here. What am I pointing at? Well, I'm giving you guys a random example, for sure, one of the more recent examples of a weekly bullish storyline. Okay, how is this a weekly bullish storyline? Let me tell you. We have ourselves a buy and buy candle. A buy and buy candle, what does that create? That gives you a open close. Open close is a form of SNR, correct? In this weekly open close SNR, now guys, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what about this weekly? And relax, we're just dealing with this open close so I can explain to you. Now let me start again. We have a buy candle that creates a weekly support in the form of an open close. One of the wicks comes in, take a look at this bullish candle that my mouse is on. One of the wicks comes in, taps into or tests that weekly support and rejects it. Am I right by saying that this weekly candle comes in, touches the weekly support and rejects it? Does it do that? Yes. Yes. So what does that mean? We now have a weekly reject weekly. Of course, guys, of course, we need to wait for this weekly candle to close. Of course we do. Guys, if we're dealing with a weekly storyline, we have to wait for that weekly candle to close. Let's say we have a weekly support. Price comes in. We need to wait for the weekly candle here to close first. All of those 5 days that are in a week, they need to shut. They need to finish. So on a Friday, or excuse me, once the Friday is over, that now becomes the end of the week, am I right? So then we take a look as to whether it rejected yes or no. And as we can see, we have the first week, the second week comes in, tests the support and rejects it beautifully. Okay, we're fine. Now we are dealing with this following week. Say we have the first week in, misses, we don't care about this. We have the second week, oh yes, it does touch the weekly support and it rejects, fantastic. And the third week, we are dealing now with this. So what do I see? First of all, from this, what are the things that I need to do next? I'm going to give you guys a couple seconds while I sip on this double espresso. And that's that caffeine hit right there, boy. Just woke up from a nap, by the way. Did some cardio earlier, some conditioning, muscular conditioning. Okay, so what you guys should be doing is this. Weekly reject weekly. Now we go to the daily. Why? Hold on, before we go to the daily. Why are we going to the daily, my friends? We're going to the daily because as a part of the weekly storyline, we need to take a look as to whether the daily has broken out in our favor. So we go ahead and do that. Weekly reject weekly, that's the first step that's happened. Second step, has the weekly done a second step, has the daily done a bullish breakout? And yes, my friends, it has. It has done a bullish breakout. So I'll just mark that in with a red so you guys know that we do have a daily bullish breakout. So the moment this candle closes, see this daily, it closes. That means that we have a weekly bullish storyline. Don't need to confuse it. Okay, the moment this candle closes as a breakout, we have ourselves a weekly bullish storyline. I want to show you guys this again, just a quick revision. We have ourselves a weekly reject weekly, and it so happens that it's very convenient for us. As a result of the weekly reject weekly, we have ourselves a daily breakout. Now guys, if you guys are confused as to why I emphasized as a result, go ahead and check out my earliest storyline videos from the SNR series, of course, the earliest storyline videos. Go ahead and check that out, and I explained to you guys that the most favored form of a breakout is a breakout that was caused as a result of a candlestick rejection. So what do I mean by that? As a result of the weekly rejecting the weekly, we have the daily breakout. So if I were to show you this and what I exactly mean by it, if I can give myself a vertical line, I believe this would be an example of it. I don't know, I'm shooting in the dark here. So we have ourselves a weekly, we have ourselves a weekly reject weekly, right? And this this vertical line delineates, it's an ICT term, delineates, okay, when the start of a new week occurs. So this vertical line, so we have, remember we had the week 1, week 2, week 1 that missed, week 2 that touched, week 3, right? Above this line is when week 3 is, okay? So this candle is when week 3 started, the next week, the week that came after the rejection. Don't confuse yourself, right? It's just this candle, that's it. Now we want to see, after the closure of the previous week's candle, we want to see whether there was a daily breakout that was created. So we're going to go, we're going to see, and we're going to see what? We're going to see everything before this line, because after this line is when the new week starts, right? So you're going to see everything before this line, and we can see, oh, as a result of the weekly reject weekly, we have ourselves a daily breakout. Alternatively, what could happen is, weekly reject weekly, price has not broken out anything on the daily. So we have ourselves a weekly reject weekly, price has not broken out at all. Has not broken out at all. And then only in the following week, we have ourselves a breakout. That is not invalid. It's just not the most favored way to constitute a storyline. It's just not the most favored way. It's not the preferred way. Doesn't mean it's wrong. Doesn't mean it's invalid. If that happens right now, I will still consider the storyline. 100% I'll consider the storyline as 100% valid. It's just not preferred. That's all. Okay? So now we've understood something, guys. We have understood that as a result of this weekly reject weekly in this open close, we have ourselves a weekly bullish storyline. We have concluded this fact. So we now have, if we were to go and open up a notepad, we now have currently a weekly bullish storyline. We have a weekly bullish storyline right now. We have concluded this. Now, this obviously means what? See, this is what's going on in my head. You guys always talk about, Avi, can you show us on the charts? Why do you keep typing stuff down, bro? Bro, I'm trying to, do you come from a land? Sorry. All right. That's the ADHD in me speaking. All right. So I'm trying to show you guys what's going on in my head. I don't actually see these lines. I don't do that stuff. I look at my MT4 on my phone and I place a freaking trade based on what I see on my phone, bro. But first, when I started off, of course, we had to do it professionally. Okay, weekly bullish storyline. What are we talking about here, my friends? We're talking about weekly resistance. Be very careful. Okay, weekly resistance, we be very careful. Daily resistance, obstacle, be careful. See how it's not be very careful? What does this mean? This is what's going on in my head, guys. What does this mean? If we are in a weekly bullish storyline, listen, if we are in a weekly bullish storyline and price after the weekly bullish storyline is happening, oh, buys, yay, happy, right? But then price enters into a weekly resistance. I will be even more concerned of this trade, of this buy trade. I will be even more concerned of this buy trade if price enters into a weekly resistance, as opposed to weekly bullish storyline. I'm buying, yay, I'm buying, but price enters a daily resistance. Daily resistance, not as strong as a weekly resistance. Why? Because the storyline itself is weekly, right? Same thing with a daily storyline, my friends. If we have a daily bullish storyline, yes, I will pay a bit of attention to the H4 because, guys, daily bullish storyline, the obstacle as per the rules would be H4, correct? But as we all know, sometimes price just blasts through the H4 and then I just took a significant portion of my profits for no reason, you know? Of course, again, it's better safe than sorry, but you get my point. So, weekly bullish storyline, I'll be the most concerned once price reaches into a fresh weekly resistance. In fact, this is a very, very important detail. Fresh weekly resistance. Of course, here, of course, same thing. Fresh daily resistance. Okay, it's an obstacle, be careful. But oh my gosh, fresh weekly resistance, holy, you know? So yes, this is what's going on through my head. And of course, when it comes to entries, you know, daily support, find entries, right? Use the daily support to find entries. So it's not just enter off of the daily. Of course, as you guys know, we go daily, we go H4, we go H1, add some trend lines, use some ICT kill zone confluences, candlestick closures. If you guys want to use an SMC, M5, M1, M3, QM structure or SHBMS RTO for all of you SMC guys, you can go ahead and do that as well. But what I teach here is pure Malaysian SNR as far as I'm concerned. We have ourselves a weekly bullish storyline as proven. Weekly fresh resistance, be very careful. Fresh daily resistance, it's an obstacle, be careful about it too, right? So weekly, now we can see this is the weekly bullish storyline, but holy moly, we have a weekly fresh resistance here. I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to really take in everything that I've just said. I totally didn't use that time to take another big gulp of my 30 grams whole protein double espresso protein smoothie by Rockaby Farms. Low lactose, fresh milk. Alright, cool. So check me out. We have ourselves the weekly bullish storyline starting from here. There was already a daily bullish breakout, so that just confirms the daily bullish. That just confirms the weekly bullish storyline. We already know we're in the weekly bullish storyline. Price enters into a weekly resistance. Be very careful, right? So over here, what am I doing? Am I just blindly taking my profits? Am I just, you know what I mean? So now we come to the question at hand. Everything that I explain, guys, it always links back to the question. Please, I beg you, pay attention. I don't beg. Begging is disgusting. I urge you to listen when I put the canvas out there and I'm creating the structures for the paintings. Pay attention to that because it all leads back to this, okay? Can they change the storyline? Now, my friend, Memaya, 7013, 14 hours ago. It wasn't 14 hours ago. It was a couple weeks back. I'm going to answer your question, my friend. My friend. Okay? How do we know when the obstacle can turn? Now, if we were to, let's assume we have an entry here, right? If we were to wait for another weekly reject weekly of this resistance, you guys understand what I'm going for, right? We have a weekly bullish storyline. What's the only way to stop a weekly bullish storyline in terms of strict rules would be if weekly did a weekly reject weekly resistance and daily bearish breakout and it started a whole new storyline but in a bearish sense, correct? Guys, we have a weekly bullish storyline. for us to have a weekly bearish storyline, we must have those certain rules come into play. What does that entail? That entails us waiting for a weekly reject weekly of this resistance. But my friends, it's going to take too long. One, it's going to take a whole 5 days. That's number one. Number two, what if it does something like this where it touches it and it sells aggressively? And now we've only made maybe 15% of our potential proper gain. So what would I do? Now, I'm answering two questions in one go. I'm talking about a hindsight entry. It was not hindsight, but the reason I say hindsight is because I never captured a screenshot on my MT4. Regardless, this is a hindsight backtest. How would I have entered this? How would I have dealt with this? And I'm also answering the question of how do I know when an obstacle could potentially be an issue? How do I know when an obstacle could potentially influence or change the storyline? What's that indication? What would be the first indication, the earliest indication? I'm gonna answer that. This is gonna be a beautiful video, my friends. I think it's gonna be a beautiful video. We have a weekly bullish, price comes into a weekly resistance. I can't wait a whole week for this to weekly reject weekly, daily bearish breakout. It's gonna take too much time. What do? I take a look at whether there are any daily fresh resistances within this weekly. Are there any daily fresh resistances within this weekly? Why? Why am I doing that, you think? Because with a weekly, I'd have to wait 5 days for it to close. But with the daily, I just have to wait 24 hours. That's it. I just have to wait a single day. So if I just wait a single day, this is the logic. If I wait just one single day for there to be for example, there's a daily fresh right here, right? So we're gonna take a look at this. We have a daily fresh here, guys. Can we agree? We have a sell, that's a daily open close resistance, correct? Which is fresh. It's never been tested before. Now here's the test, of course. But before that, price would be like this. It would look something like this. Oh, daily fresh, correct? When I look at this, I'd say, whoa, I've just completely lost my train of thought, man. That's actually crazy. I think I've been punched one too many times in the sparring rounds in my gym, bro. Damn. Just completely lost my train of thought there. All right, let me come back to this. What am I explaining? All right, we're explaining the significance of why we found the daily. Why are we looking at the daily? Okay, right. With a weekly, we've all accepted the fact that a weekly would take 5 days for it to be weekly reject weekly, daily bearish breakout. Oh, weekly has turned from bullish storyline to bearish storyline. It's going to take a week. Now, instead, we have the daily. We just have to wait 1 day for there to be a daily reject daily, candle close, and a H4 bearish breakout. If these terms have been agreed upon, have occurred to us and unfolded before our very eyes, then we can say, okay, the daily obstacle is something we should be concerned about. Now it begs the question, what is the first sign? Again, guys, remember at the start of this video, we're talking about just the weekly storyline. Okay? Just the weekly and below, that's it. What would be the first sign of the weekly bullish storyline? In this case, we're dealing with the bullish. What would be the first sign of the weekly bullish storyline switching up? So switching from bullish to bearish, right? That's what switching up means. What would be the first sign of the weekly bullish storyline turning into bearish? It would be a successful storyline starting from the daily resistance, one time frame below. That's the obstacle, right? If it comes from weekly, that's crazy, you know, that's a big deal, right? Doesn't mean it's going to follow through, guys. Does not mean it's going to follow through. Same thing with the daily. Doesn't mean just because we have daily reject daily, right? If we have weekly bullish storyline, oh, daily reject daily resistance, H4 bearish breakout, immediately we take 100% of our profits from the weekly and we just start committing fully to the sell. No, doesn't mean that, right? It just means, all right, let's really pay attention here and let's be smart and take some of our profits, because it could mean that price is just going to completely sell off. Could mean that. All right, so we want to pay attention to this. So the reason, now to answer the question again, the reason we're looking at the daily is because it will be the first indication. First of all, the daily is a very valid obstacle for the weekly storyline. Secondly, the reason we're looking at the daily is because it will give us our first hint that the weekly could sell off and go completely against our weekly bullish storyline. Okay, Now, here is another layer to it. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to answer this layer. I'm going to state this layer with a question. If we are placing a trade, or if we are thinking of placing a trade before the actual storyline has happened, what type of trade is that? So what I mean is that a trade based on us following the pure rule, So is it like we have a weekly bullish storyline, we're waiting for a weekly reject weekly, daily bearish breakout, then we play from the daily? What type of trade is that? My friends, that is an example of an anticipation trade. Why? I am looking at this daily to give me that first hint of a reversal potentially, right? But actually what I'm trying to do is ride the potential weekly sell from here. That is my intention. But I can't wait for the weekly reject weekly. It's going to take too long. I may miss the move, etc. and etc. So I consult the daily so I can take a trade in anticipation that the weekly closes as a weekly reject weekly and a daily bearish breakout. In anticipation of that. Okay? So that again, anticipation trades are advanced, right? What would the basic fellow do? The basic fellow would say, oh, weekly bullish storyline. Well, we wait for a weekly reject weekly resistance, daily bearish breakout. Then we have a weekly bearish storyline. And then what we do, we just play straight from the daily. So the daily broke out here, boom, breakout. We will play from here. We will look what's on the left. Is this one it? Yeah, this one is it. See? From this line. Oh, okay. So now we have, for sure, we have ourselves a weekly bearish storyline, right? We for sure have a weekly bearish storyline. We just play from the dailies, blah, blah, blah. We go on and go on like this, right? So this is what the average guy would do. It's not average in the sense of an amateur. An amateur would do this, right? But if you want to take anticipation trades such as myself, this is how you would do it. Now again, guys, don't confuse yourself. I'm giving you guys a bunch of context, all right? The rules are the same. We have a weekly bullish storyline. I keep coming back to that. We're just paying attention to the fact that we're not only trading within a weekly resistance, which is a huge deal, but we can't wait for the weekly resistance to show us a sign of a storyline. Let's take some early precautions. Let's take some early steps. So we mark this daily, and we now go into this daily. And now we're waiting, guys. We're waiting. Does price, when price touches this daily, does price do a daily reject daily H4 bearish breakout? Does it do it? Because if it does do it, this is like a computer program. When it does this, if statements, when you do computer programming, if statements, else if, if it does this, okay, this program will be executed. If it doesn't do this, blah, 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 right? So if price starts a bearish storyline from the daily, oh my gosh, price may be holding from this area. We should be worried about our buys from this previous weekly. We should be worried about it. Maybe take some profits. Maybe take the whole thing if you're, a short-term swing trader, right? These are the precautions that we would do. So let's see. Daily reject daily. And now we take a look at the next day. So this day was what? This day was Wednesday. So on Thursday, we're opening our charts. We're taking a look at the Wednesday. Oh, look, Wednesday did a daily reject daily. Okay, interesting. Let's go take a look at the H4. Is there a breakout? Yes, there is a breakout right here. But you can see from this example, this breakout was the second type, not the most favored, all right? But not the most preferred, but it's a breakout nonetheless. It happened on the next day. So on the start of the Wednesday or on the start of the Thursday, boom, we broke out of here, right? So what are some of the potential entries that we could look at? Well, here would be it, I think. Mine would be infrastructure here. These would be some. There would be some above. We don't focus too much on the entries, my friends. We will focus, see, there's a bunch, right? So you want to add some confluences. You want to see ICT kill zones. You want to see candlestick closures. You want to see M5, M3, M1 QMs. If you guys are wondering what a QM is, it's this structure, right, where we break and then we come back, we take it from here, or we take it from here, right? You want to see trend lines. We could do trend lines. I think I drew some earlier. I think we could use this, right? See, so that would have been some. I think we could have used this. Looks better, right? Let me just make sure that I'm not cheating you guys. So it's right there on the dot. I hope that's correct. There we go. You can see that we have one example of a trend line. We have another example of a trend line right here. This is not a diverger. This is a breakout kind of trend line. It's going in together with the zone. We could use this, for example. Yeah, pretty much that, man. So have I answered this question? Can you explain about obstacles? Can they change the storyline? I've answered the question by stating to you guys and giving you guys an example of how we had ourselves a weekly bullish storyline, and this obstacle on the daily changed that storyline. Not that the daily made the weekly bullish storyline turn bearish. No, the daily didn't do that. But it gives you the first hint about if the storyline can change. So do obstacles influence the storyline? Absolutely. Can obstacles change the storyline? Can they change? Not influence, not give you a hint or something indirect. No. Can the daily time frame override the weekly time frame in terms of storyline? That's the question. No, it cannot happen. No. To answer the question, this daily, doing a daily reject daily and H4 bearish breakout, it does not mean that the weekly has turned from bullish to bearish. No, the only way the weekly can turn from bullish to bearish is if we have a weekly bearish storyline start. Weekly reject weekly, daily bearish breakout, right? But this daily influences that, influences the weekly storyline. By doing what? By giving us the first hint that price could turn against our bias. Okay, so I've answered the question and I've also delivered even more to you. Can obstacles change the storyline? No, they cannot, Memaya. Yeah, 13, 14 hours ago. No, they cannot do that. But can they influence? Can they affect indirectly the current storyline? Yes, absolutely they can. Absolutely they can. So I hope I've answered this question and I've given you guys a beautiful example. Maybe my explanations, I included too many concepts. Maybe I went a bit too in-depth and too detailed with my explanations. But the structure is here. The point of the Q&A is to answer the question. I believe I have done that. And above and beyond that, I've also given you guys even more. I've given you guys how you could have entered. I've given you guys what went on in my head, you know? This stuff. You see? So that's pretty much it, man. I don't want to waste too much of you guys' time. What's the time right now? 27 minutes. That's perfectly fine. I need to start making 40-minute long Netflix episodes. Let's stick to around 30 minutes. And the thing is, I want to include so much because when I talk about something like this and then I miss something that I thought about at that time, but I was like, nah, too much time. Then later I see it in the comment section. I'm like, okay, well, I could have just answered this in the video. You know what I mean? For example, I know one of the comments are going to say, but Avi, this daily that you've marked, this daily that you've marked right here, right? It's below the weekly. How come you can enter? The reason for that, that was a question you asked, didn't you? Random ass mo. Okay, so why? Why is this valid still? It's because price came in and touched the weekly as well. If it just came in and just tapped the pink box, which represents the daily, if it just came and tapped that and completely missed the weekly, then I would expect that price would do a fake out. It would do a fake out and come up and touch the weekly maybe in the coming days. But price came in and just rammed it right through. Pause, right? Rammed it right through. And then did the daily reject daily, H4 bearish breakout, all of that stuff, right? So yeah, man, that's pretty much it. And then at this point, by the way, you're just going to be riding the daily bearish storyline. You're literally riding a daily bearish storyline into the next daily. So we have another daily here, we have another daily here, here, and here. So all you're going to do in these instances is you would mark them out. So let's say you're selling, right? Boom, 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 I'm selling. You would mark them out, okay? And you would wait for a daily reject daily. See, daily didn't reject this one. Daily didn't reject this one. In fact, it created a left shoulder out of it. Price, boom, comes down and rejects off of here. Rejects off of here, this left shoulder, right? So what would we do? We would take a look. Okay, daily reject daily. Any H4 bullish breakouts? No. Daily just came in, rejected. Ooh, that's the result of the rejection. But no H4 breakouts. So how dare we say that we have ourselves a daily bullish storyline now? It's still bearish. Daily is still bearish. And it's coming from a weekly. So we should probably be skeptical about this. We should probably be aware of this. Okay? And yeah, man, I think that's pretty much it, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Telegram channel for AKFX down in the description section below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, but most importantly than enjoyment, I hope you guys had your question answered in as thorough detail as possible. See you guys in the next one, man. Peace out. Have a great day.